y'all, howdy, welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and today we're going to be doing my final tier ranking of everything that I read, watched, or played in 2024. I have been doing these once a quarter since the start of the year, and I realize it's a little late to still be doing 2024 content, but since I did one for quarter one, quarter two, and quarter three, it seemed like it would be sad to just neglect the quarter four one. I already have all of the things that I read in the first three quarters ranked on the screen, and I will just be adding the 20 things that I read or watched for the very first time in quarter four, October, November, and December. I only have 20 things to add, and that is 19 books and one TV show. I don't have as many things this quarter, and I think part of that is just because I was rewatching The Expanse. We rewatched like all 6 seasons of it. And so as you can see, I have a new fave category at the very tippy top, books or movies that I think are great, things that were a good time, things that were mediocre, and things that I DNF'd. I did not DNF anything in quarter four, so I have nothing new to add to that category. But first up on the list is A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I'm gonna put this one in great. I had a great time with this book. It was vampire, obviously, story set in the 1990s among a housewives book club, and it had good 90s vibes. It was like a little bit campy, but it was a very satisfying read. It was a great time. So that has definitely interested me in more of Grady Hendrix's work. I think I'm gonna put it right in between Murderbot and Una Out of Order. That feels good. Okay, then I have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a classic kind of gothic story. I'm sure you're familiar with the premise. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was mediocre. It just didn't have a whole lot of modern storytelling devices that I have come to appreciate about modern storytelling. It was like written from the perspective of the lawyer of Mr. Hyde, who really had no significance to the plot. So that one is mediocre. I'm gonna put it above The History of Bees. Then next up is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This one is a horror book about some teenagers that try to pull a prank on their friend who works at the movie theater by bringing a mannequin to sit in and then complaining or sitting in an anonymous complaint at the movie theater that someone snuck in without a ticket, hoping that their mannequin would be discovered. And the mannequin gets up and walks out of the theater, and things ensue. This one was definitely a really good time. I think I'm gonna put it in like low great, probably right near Black God's Drums. I feel like I feel pretty similarly about these two. Then we have What Feast at Night by T. Kingfisher. This was a sequel to What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and this one was good. This one was a good time. I don't think it was great, but I had a good time while reading it. So I think I would put that one probably below Lone Women as far as a good time goes. So then we have We Spread by Anne Reid. This was probably my favorite horror book of the year. It is about an older woman who is losing her memories, and she's put in a home, and it just has really sinister vibes. She thinks that something is going on at the home, but she doesn't have good enough memory to know what's actually going on, and it's a little ambiguous to the reader as to whether something sinister really is happening or if her memory is just playing tricks on her, and I loved the ambiguity of it all. I'm gonna put this one in probably a new fave because it was my favorite horror book of the year, and I gave it 5 stars. So I'll just go ahead and throw that up in the bottom of a new fave. Then I have the 3 books that make up the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is the final 3 books in the First Law world, and I loved this trilogy. I loved it way more than the first trilogy. I thought the characters were so great. Orso and Ricky and Savine, I just loved them. So I think the 3rd book of this trilogy was actually my favorite. So I think I'm gonna put the first 2 books in high great, and the third book, The Wisdom of Crowds, up in a new fave. Probably right below Amina al-Sarafi in terms of favorites. And then where do I want them to go in great? Ugh. I think I'm gonna put them right below Little Women, both of them. Yeah, they were some of my favorite reads of the year. So I had so many favorites in the last quarter of the year. This was really this was a good quarter. There by Tommy Orange was a book that I read for my Buzzwordathon reading vlog. And this is about a Native American powwow, and it's from the perspective of many different people who are attending the powwow leading up to that event and a tragedy that takes place there. It's kind of a contemporary novel set in Oakland, California. I thought this was a good time. It's literary and it ends a little bit ambiguously in terms of where some of our characters are, and I don't love that. So I think it's just gonna be a good time. And I'm probably gonna put it down here at the bottom with some of the other literary books that are in a similar vein. Then we have Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. I had to double check the author's name. And this one, it was fine. It was a good time. I don't love mystery books, and this was a mystery. So yeah, it's also gonna be a good time. It was entertaining, but I wasn't loving it, I guess. I think it also goes down here with some of the more literary books. Oh, it was better than Howling Dark. Okay, it's gonna go above Howling Dark. All right, and then we have Oscar Wilde's Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast. This is a nonfiction book, and it is literally just like a series of quotations from Oscar Wilde. I don't know if it's like conglomerated from various essays or if it's like known things that he said. I don't really understand, but it's a classic, and it had a lot of fun, quippy things, but it didn't have like a through line or a plot line or a thesis or anything like that. So it wasn't really what I was expecting. But as far as like quick, easy readability and some pretty searing quotes, it was a good time. So I think I will put it above Avatar, the show, the live action show. Then we have Annie Bot. Annie Bot was a book that I read for the Goodreads sci-fi reading vlog, and I loved this one. It was beautiful, it was heart-wrenching, it was sad, but ended on a note of hope. It is about a sex bot named Annie, and her relationship with her owner, Doug, is not a good person. And yeah, that one's definitely a new fave. I'm gonna put this one above Tombstone. Then Stardust Grail by Yumi Kitase. I did not like this book. I'm gonna put it in mediocre. It was, I think, the definition of a mediocre read. It was very kind of underbaked. So where in mediocre should it go? It definitely had redeeming qualities, but it wasn't worth my time. I'm gonna put it below When Women Were Dragons. Then we have The Lotus Empire. This is the final book of the Burning Kingdoms trilogy, which starts with The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I thought this was a great conclusion to this story. It, I think, will probably get better upon reread, but it was great this time around as well. I'm gonna put it above Burn After Reading, but below Vox Machina. Ministry of Time was a good time by Kayleen Bradley. This was a really popular book this year on the Goodreads Choice Awards. It won the sci-fi category. I thought there were definitely much better books in the sci-fi category than this one, but I had a good time reading it, and I think I will put it right above Neon Ghosts. Then we have Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. You'll notice if you watch a lot of my videos, I haven't done reviews for my channel or like reading wrap-ups for many of these. That'll be coming up soon. So Wind and Truth, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed all of the Stormlight Archive. It's a new favorite series of all time. I do not think this was the best of the series, but I did really like a lot of aspects of it, and I thought other aspects of it were a little too slow or drawn out. So I felt like the pacing was a bit off, but it was great. It was great, hands down. I think I'm gonna put it right below the first two books of the Age of Madness trilogy. Then we have The Bear and the Nightingale, which is the Winter Night trilogy. I read all three of these books in December, and they were fantastic. The series overall, definitely a new fave. I would love to reread these in the future. This is set in like medieval Russian times. The main character is a girl named Vasya who is accused of being a witch, and there's lots of like Russian folklore, folktale type creatures that come into it that she can see and other people cannot see, and it gets really epic by the second and third books. So the first book I think was my least favorite one of the series. It was great. I think I'm gonna put it right up below Rhythm of War. And then the other two are definitely going to be higher than that. Ooh, yeah, I think I'm going to put them above Wind and Truth, which is crazy. That's crazy to say, but that's how I feel. And then the very last thing on the tier ranking for quarter 3 is the only non-book entry for this quarter, and that is season 6, the series finale of What We Do in the Shadows, which is a really goofy show on Hulu about vampires living on Staten Island in the modern age. I would say overall the season was a little weak. There were just a lot of episodes that didn't hit for me, but I was really happy with the finale of the season, and I think they tied up all of the ends really, really well. So I'm gonna definitely put it in a good time. Yeah, I'm gonna put it right below Kerbopolis. Oops. So that's where we are for the tier ranking of everything that I read in 2024. Now, if I was going to completely start from scratch and tier rank everything all at once, I'm sure that my tier ranking would look different than it does right now, because how I felt about things that I read in quarter one is different than how I feel about things that I read in quarter 1 now. But this is doing it one quarter at a time. This is the final result, and I feel pretty happy with how the things have stacked up. Let me know down in the comments below if anything that's on my new fave list made your list of favorites, or if there's anything on this list that you think I am absolutely wrong about that deserves either a much higher or much lower rating. I'd love to hear your opinions. Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out for a little bit today. As always, please be kind, read more books, and hit the subscribe button down below for more bookish content to come. I'll see you again soon.